So let's carry on. Okay, now that we have seen or we have agreed that this particular class is going to connect to a database, let's see how that works out. So as I said, we're going to use object-oriented programming. So here, what I'm saying is, first of all, I want to create a class called database, and this class called database, I want it to be able to have all the functionalities that are required for connect to database. So to define a class in PHP, you simply use the word class, then you give it a name, DB, then you use the curly brackets like that. So there's a class called database. That's all. Then down here, what I can do is I can create access modifiers just like in any other programming language. I'll have the variables or the properties that I want to be able to be accessible with or as far as configuration are concerned. For example, let me create them as private. Private means they can only be accessed within this particular class. They cannot be able to be accessed outside the class itself. So I'll say private, maybe server name, because I'll need the name of the server. Then I have also username, username. Well, I'll need to make them private all. So besides username, what else do I need? I need password, database name. Yeah, I need sorry, private password. I also need private database name. Starts with dollar sign. What else do I need? I think I need character set, user ID, private cassette, private. Mm, do I need user ID for now? Yeah, I'll need user ID, but well, we'll use it in the future. But let me just keep it like that for now. So these are the properties that I need now. Whenever I have these are properties, then the other thing I need are the methods. So besides properties, I also need methods. So these are properties. So I also need some methods that I can invoke. And one of the methods I need is connecting to the database itself. So to define a method, use the function keyword. So I'll use function connect. Then, of course, I can have variables if need be, but since I am using this to connect to my database, I think I'll not need to pass any variables. Now, for me to be able to connect to my database, I want to use MySQL. So first of all, what I'll need to do is assign these properties values. I need a server name, I need username, and I need password, and I need DB name. So at least up to character set, at least I need these five variables. So let me give them some values. Of course, I'll simply say this to refer to this current object dot server name, server name. I'll use localhost. As you can see here, we were using localhost, or you can put 127.0.0.1, 127.0.0.1. That will still be able to work out. Um, did I miss something? Yeah, I think it's because I'm still typing a few things over here. That's why it's giving me an error. But if I run it, it will definitely not give me anything up to that point. So that works. You can see it's blank. So either I use localhost or 1.0.0.0.1. But in future, of course, once you have implemented your project, you're going to put the address of your server over here. So for now, because I'm in development, I'll put localhost. If I was using any specific port like 8080, I would put it like that. But I'm using port 80 by default, so I'll leave it open. So that is the server name. So I'm simply saying this server name over here, I'm assigning it to localhost. And I made it private, so it means it is only accessible within the class itself. Then I need to set up, besides the server name, I also need the character set. So I'll say this car set, car set. Car set is what yeah, I think I give it car set. I'll give it UTF 8MB4. That one takes all the characters, including Chinese, Russian, Greek, you name it. Then I also need, besides the character set, I think I also need the username. So I'll say the database username. The username for the, sorry, username for my database is, I'm using root, the default. I think I also need the password. So password, my password is blank. I also need the database name. Yeah, that's what I call it. DB name we call it movies. I think we call it movies, not nothing more than that. So these are the properties. I have set them. Fine. So now the other thing I need to do is to now connect to the database now that I have all the parameters. So for me to connect to a database, I will need connection string. So to connect to a database, you need a connection string, and it will be in the format like this. It will be the driver, then there'll be a full column. Then of course you specify your host name, which is your server name at the top there. Then after your host name, you need to provide your server name, and then you need to provide your database name. So that's the syntax of how the connection string looks like. So you have driver, which driver you're using. Then you have your host, then you the driver, then your host, then your server name, then your database name. So let's configure that. So I'll declare a variable here called DSN, or data source name, is equals to. Now for my driver, I use MySQL drivers like that. Okay. Then for my host, I'll put the word host. Then I put equal to. Then my host is PHP. In PHP to concatenate strings, you use dots. So my host will be this server name. Okay. Others I could have just put localhost, but I like using variables instead. Then after that, sorry, I'll put what do you call this? Semicolon. Then my server name, I'll simply put server name. Server name will be this. Server name is here. Then after server name, I'll put my database name. So dot, sorry, semicolon. Then I'll put my database name, which is here. Okay, so that becomes my connection string. Now I want to use something called PDO, or PHP database object. Why I'm using this is because I want this code to be scalable. So I not only need to use MySQL, but even if I was using SQL Server or Oracle or Sybase or any enterprise Postgres or any other enterprise database, I'm not going to be able to change my code. I'm going to change the drivers, and everything else works right out of the box. Or at least in theory, that's how it should be. Or maybe I might need a bit of modification here and there, but that is going to be kept at very, very minimal. If I was using MySQL, on the other hand, and I'm not using PDO, then it means that every time I change a database to use, then I have to modify a lot of these connection objects and stuff like that. So I'm going to use PDO for that. So what I'm going to do here is I'll declare, uh, sorry, I'll declare a PDO object. So I'll say PDO equals new PDO, as you can see. Sorry. Of course, I have to pass some parameters to the PDO. I'll give it the data source name, which is DSN dollar sign, the variable that I've declared up here, this one. Then I'll give it username and password to connect to that database. So username will be this username. Then I'll give it a password, this dot password, like that. Of course, on the PDO, I also need to provide it with some parameters. Like for example, how I want the errors to be displayed. By default, they are disabled. So I'll simply say this PDO object. Let me just extend some few attributes. So one of the attributes I want is the error mode. So I'll simply say PDO.set attribute. Attribute. I think that's it. I don't know why the autocompletion is not working. So the attribute I want to send are two. One of them is PDO, the object. I want to do what we call attribute error mode, like that. Then I'll set another one, PDO, the error mode. The error mode, I want it to be, sorry, exception. Uh, yeah. So that should allow me to be able to display errors, nice uh, and easy. So there's one thing I forgot. I forgot about the character set at the top here. So db name equals character set comes before, just after the database name. So dot yeah, then char set is equals to this dot character set. Now I don't usually cram this. You can get it from connectionstrings.com. You don't need to sweat yourself with um, uh, cramming the syntax. You can go to connectionstrings.com. Connectionstrings.com here. Then just look for PDO. PHP database object DSN. Then you look for PDO. There's PDO here. It should be here. They have changed the format. PHP. Let me PHP. Okay, I'll get you. It should be somewhere here. Where is PDO? PDO should have been somewhere here. I don't know where it is, but I'll get for you. But you can check all the syntax is here, so you don't need to to kill yourself over that over the format. And of course, I've also done it in the past a couple of times. So this is usually not a very big deal as far as because so long as you have written it once and you've written it correctly, in future you just need to change a few parameters. That's why I defined them up here. So I may never need to touch this particular connection anyway. So my point was I want to abstract this in such a way that I'm going to reuse this class over and over and over again so that I'm sure that everything works right out of the box. Now, once I set up my PDO, the only thing I need to do is to return the PDO itself because it will have connected, return the PDO object. So that will be my connection. And that's basically it. So the only other thing I need to do is probably now to execute some statements. So this is going to provide a connection for me. And this connection, I'm going to access it via this PDO object. So every other thing up here, the only thing I'm concerned with is this PDO object, and I am good to go. Okay. Now, what I could have done on the other hand is to do a try catch over here just to trap errors. Try this. Okay. So once I try that, then I catch the PDO error. I think it's called PDO exception, not object. PDO exception. PDO exception. Spelling is very important in PHP, by the way, just like JavaScript. Usually I use it as a lowercase e. That's for my exception. So if an error maybe occurred, I would probably say something like How do I report this error? So maybe say echo. Echo is outputting, connection failed. Then maybe I concatenate a string. I'll simply say the error get message. That will get me the get message property will give me the error that was actually generated, if there is any. I think that should be okay. Now, why I'm doing that is because I'll be executing queries. I'll be trying to connect over and over. And if it fails to connect, I need to know why it failed to connect so that I can be able to advise the user appropriately. Maybe there is a wrong password. Maybe you've selected the wrong database. Maybe you've selected the wrong server, whatever it is. So you have to know what issues you're coming up with. So that's connection. Then the other thing I'll need to do, the other method I'll need to define is getting data. So I can define another function here called get data. And this is important. This get data, I'm going to pass an SQL statement to it, and I'm going to require this PDO object to execute that query, then it gives me those results. And this is how that works out. So what I'm going to do is going to be as simple as just returning. I'll get the PDO object, and this PDO object, I'll simply tell it, or rather tell it the PDO object, but the current object, I'll simply tell it um, connect, which is the method I have up here. Then after connect, I'll simply tell it to query this SQL statement that I have provided up here. So I'm saying the current object connect, which means it comes and executes this. It gives me a PDO object. By there, I could have just accessed PDO, because PDO is within the connect method, I'm not able to access it outside. Otherwise, I would have needed to define it up here. So when I say connect and I tell it query, it means query will allow it to execute a query based on the SQL statement that I have provided. Then, of course, it will give me back that result as what we call a record set. So from the record set, we'll need to figure out how to move about it. Then I'll define another one called get JSON. Let me use capital J like that. So this get JSON, I'm also going to give it an SQL statement. Now, this one, I'm going to use it mostly for storing data. This one, I'm going to use it for extracting data that I'm sending over to my API so that the users can be able to consume it. So that's the slight distinction between the two of them. Again, I'll simply use a record set here because I have already executed a record set here. I can define a record set value here. So record set is equals. I'll simply say this, which is the current object. Then I'll say get data. That will be able to take that whatever is executed here, the results, it stores it in a record set like this. Then what do I do with the record set? I want to return it as a JSON. So I'll simply say, or should I say echo? I think return is good. JSON encode. Because this is going to be an array by default, I want to encode it as a JSON object so that now I can be able to send it over to a browser or any other third-party application that is able to consume JSON. So I'll say JSON encode. Then I'll simply take my record set and I will fetch all the rows. Now, I might want to be sure. By default, it should fetch arrays, but sometimes configurations are a bit tricky. So I'll just force it to fetch an array. The default is array. If I left it out, it might work, it might not work. But if I force it, then it means that it will actually require that the data the data that is fetched is fetched as an associative array, which is what I need. So I'll simply say the PDO object, get me, fetch it as an associative array, fetch associative, like that. So this part here is optional. I'm just running it to make sure that it is able to execute that code and return it as an associative array, which is encoded back into a JSON object, which is able to be read on the client. So you're going to see how that works in a short while. Don't worry about that. Now, the other function I might need here is MySQL is very tricky with dates. As you had seen before, when I was demonstrating how to add content, you saw that I was being very specific on the date format, right? So it requires the date format in this format. If I provide the date in any other format, then MySQL most likely rejects it or inserts a null value in the date column. So I just need also, as part of my database connectivity, to be able to convert dates in a manner that MySQL will be able to understand very, very easily. So I'll come here and say function MySQL date. So I'm just going to use this function. So I'll pick a date here, and based on the date, I'll just convert it. So first things first, I'll simply create a date in the format from date, month, and year. So I can simply say here, my date, I want to convert the format to date, month, year. So I'll simply say there is a function called date time, date time, like that. So within the datetime class, it's part of the PHP class. So I'll say create format, yeah. Then I'll give it the date format I want it to have, which is day, month, year, and from the date that has been supplied. So it will convert the date into day, month, and year. Once it has converted into day, month, and year, then now I can convert it to what my SQL expects. So I'll return, okay, spelling mistake. Then I'll simply pick my date. Now, since it's an object, I've created it as an object here. So I can be able to access some various methods, which is format. And I'm going to give it format. So PHP allows me to format in year, capital Y, M, capital M, and of course D, small letter d. That allows me to be able to convert any date into day, month, and year. So yeah, I think yeah we'll probably maybe go ahead and increase this class later, but in the meantime, this should be sufficient to allow us to be able to connect to our database. Now, you only need to do this once, and you're going to see I'm going to use this thing a million times. This particular class, I'm going to use it a million times because it is the entry into my database, and it is the place also where I'm executing the SQL statements and I'm getting the results back. So this is going to play a very crucial part as far as my application is concerned. Why am I doing this? I'm using what we call dry pattern. Don't repeat yourself. So I want to create one function and I want to reuse them over and over again without repeating myself. That's why dry pattern is very important. And again, it makes your code simple, it makes it straightforward and very, very easy to debug. All right, excellent. So now we have that. How do we test this? Well, uh, I could simply say get data. I can simply call down here uh, function. Okay, I can simply say this get data. Then, since we have stored procedures here that are working, this one does not require parameters, so I'll call this. That does not require parameters, so I'll call that. Did I miss something? Why is it I'm in the current object? Well, okay. Am I outside the class? No, I have to get outside the class. So, of course, I usually don't execute this inside here, but I just want us to test that. So I'll create a new database is equals to new database. Then I'll simply say database dot get data, which is that. That should be okay. Get data. What did I miss out? There's something I've missed out here. What is it? Something I missed out here. I don't know what it is. Oh, That was actually okay. I missed the semicolon here. It was actually okay. I just missed the semicolon up here. Sorry about that. Um, yeah, so this should allow me to test if I'm able to get all the movie categories on my page, then that should be okay. Actually, instead of saying get data, let me just say get JSON because JSON will convert it into a JSON object as we have seen over here. So if everything is fine, I should be able to get a list of movie categories as a JSON object. So let's see if that works out. If it doesn't, then we figure out how to fix it up. Sorry. Where we are here. Here. So run that. Error mode exception. What is this saying? A constant error mode exception. Error mode exception. Let me see how have I defined it. Error mode exception should be error mode. Let me just see what I have used before. Um, Error mode exception. Oh, it's R mode. Okay, actually, let me just copy this. It's R mode. There's no, what do you call it? There's no, um, there's no underscore between error and mode. So let me just copy that. Same thing. Um, Exception. And I've copied it halfway still. Semicolon. Yeah, I think that's fine. Everything, yeah. Okay. I don't need this. Oh, so this is why I defined it up here. Yeah, it's okay. Actually, it's here. Sorry. So the point was this error mode, I put an underscore here. It's not, it ought not have to have been there. So let me try that again. Sorry. Uh, Run it. Now, did I return or did I echo it? So let me check. I didn't echo it, so let me just say echo. Those are small errors that you would get as you're trying this out. So as you can see, I have a list of my categories. This is actually just this is what I expected to do. Now, if I made something like, let me just make an error here, like say for example, give the wrong movie name, give the wrong database name, like that, and try to execute it back. You can see it tells me, actually get message is supposed to be lowercase m, small mistakes. What is I think video get message. What is the spelling mistake? Let me just check the spelling. It's get message. Yeah, it's get message. It's get message. I don't know why it's refusing. It's get message. Oh, sorry. I put a dot instead of the arrow. So you can see it takes a little bit getting used to. So you can see it tells me unknown database movie triple one. So that's why the try was important. So if I fix the movie and for some strange reason I simply just give the wrong stored procedure name here, it should be able to fix all those things for me. So it will tell me a procedure movie database does not exist. So it's very, very clear. It's going to be very, very descriptive for us as far as trapping errors are concerned. Now, what's important here, the takeaway here is I want to be able to use this particular one class to be able to provide connection to my entire database. And you can see it's very, very abstract, it's very, very compact, and I've done it in such a way that it makes it very, very easy to scale up within portions of your application. Okay, as I said again, you don't need to master or to cram how this connection string works. I only need you to know that it has the driver, it has the host, it has the database name, and the character set to use. Then how you connect, we're going to use a PDO, which we are going to give errors. We're going to display errors in terms of the error mode and the error itself, which now we can try and display any errors that occur as a result of our database. That will enable us now to write our code and just check if whatever has been returned is JSON. If whatever has been returned is not JSON, then probably we just tell the user an error occurred and we describe for them the error that has actually occurred. So that is the database class. Now, this one is going to remain constant like this for almost forever. The other things we're going to do are what are going to change immensely. Any question up to that before I pick it up from now uh, uh, creating the other classes, which of course will extend the database class? Any question up to that point? As I've said, don't worry about this particular class. Just try and understand how it works out. And for the better part of this tutorial series, it will not feature in most places with the exception of it being extended to other classes. That's basically what it would do. Okay? Now, that is the database class. So let's look at another class. So we were talking about movies, the movies category. Let's create another class called movies category. So new file here. Then I'll say categories, movie categories dot php. Categories, yeah, I think I've misspelled. There's a missing e here. Movie categories dot php. Again, start with php, then close with php. What we're going to say here is, first of all, we are going to we need to import this file into our new file. So we're going to say require once. Require once should be underscore. Sorry, underscore require once underscore. Then I'm going to give the path because they're in the same directory. I'm just going to call the file direct db.php like that. So that will take whatever is in this file and load it here. So then what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say I'm creating a new class called movie category. Or I can just call it category. Category. And the category, extends the database class, which means in object-oriented programming, it will inherit all the properties and methods of the DB class. So if I go to the movies category, it should be able to connect, it should be able to get data, it should be able to get this to get JSON, it should also be able to convert my SQL data without me repeating myself. That's what that's what inheritance is all about when you're talking about object-oriented programming. So I'm basically creating a new class and I'm inheriting all the properties of the DB class so that I can be able to use them without any issues. Now, this is where it gets interesting, and this is where all our operations are going to be. So when you're talking about movie category, we said first of all we need to check category, we need to save category, we need to get categories, we also need to get category details, and we also need to delete categories. So these are the CRUD operations that we have done, right? So let's see how we implement them here, because now this is where the magic happens. So to check category, what I'll simply do here is I'll create a method. So I'll say function check movie category. Check movie category. Okay, like that. Then to check the movie category, I needed the category ID. I also need the category name, right? So it will require those two parameters. Now, once I have those two parameters, I can declare, well, I could have come here and declared an SQL variable up here. Why I'm doing that is because I don't want to redefine it over and over again in multiple pages. So let me just have it at the top there. So here I'll say the SQL variable is equals to, then I'll now call these stored procedures. So check movie category, it's here. So I'll call this stored procedure like that, and I'll paste it inside here. Of course, I'll remove the data types like that, and I'll enclose these ones into PHP variables using the angle bracket like that. Not angle, but curly brackets. Now, because category name is a string, I'll start with a string, then I close it in curly brackets like that. So this is a number, I only need the curly brackets. This is a string, I need both the single quotation mark and I enclose it inside the curly bracket. So that makes them variables. Now, what happens is this. We say that if this stood, and you have to put the word call here, sorry. Call is a must. You must start with call as we have been executing them here. We use the word call. We use the word call. So I'm just basically doing the same thing, only that now this is a variable and this is also another variable as far as PHP is concerned. So variable and variable. So that's the only difference. So we say that if I execute this statement, it will give me data. If there are any rows that were returned, then it means it exists. Otherwise, if no rows were returned, it means it does not exist. So what I'll do here, I'll simply say return the current object, which is this is by the current object that will be formed by this. Then I'll simply say get data, and get data you can see is defined inside database, which is get data here. So I have inherited all these properties. So since the category extends DB, it is able to execute all these methods that I have inside here. So I can just tell it get data. I'll give the SQL statement. It will give me some data, and we say that data is stored inside a query, inside a results set. So that result set, I can go ahead and say check if it has any rows. So if I say row count, so if the raw count returns true, it basically means that there were rows that were returned. So it means that that record exists, and that is how we check if a movie category exists. Remember, this is a class. A class is more like a template. It will not do anything unless you invoke it. So we're just simply telling a PHP that I have this template that allows me to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, when it comes to implementation, which is where the controllers are going to come in, then I'll be able to invoke these things, and we're going to see how that works out. So that is how you check the movie category. Now, how do we save the movie category? Same thing. We create another method, save movie category, save movie category, like that. Save movie category. We'll give all the variables inside there. So again, we're going to say the SQL statement is equals to call. Then I go back to my database and I say save movie category is here, and I pick it with all its variables. I copy and I paste it here. I remove the data types. Now, these ones are going to come from the user. So I'll put them up there. Then I'll change them into variables. So that is a number. That is a string. So I'll put single quote, then category description also a string, single quote, curly bracket. User ID, I can make it as part of the database here. So I'll say this, sorry, let me define here. Oh, it's actually there. So let me just say, when a user logs in, we're going to take care of that. But for now, let me just give it a static value. For now, let me give it a static value, but when a user logs in, we will be able to assign we'll be able to assign it to the user who has logged in. Now, I'm just going to say user ID is 1 so that now we are able to use it without logging in. So this one, I'll say the current element or object, then you get the user ID property. So I'm just using the user ID property. Actually, if I did that, that would not work out. So I need to make this one public. If I leave it private, it's going to be inaccessible outside this class. Well, yeah, private will still be able to work because it has inherited. I think because of inheritance, it should be able to work because this one inherits all these things. So yeah, it should be able to read that value. All right, so that should allow me to save the user category. So what I'm going to do here is simply say this get data, then I pass the SQL statement. That should go to the database and run that query, and of course it gets the results. Then what do? I simply say return. I'll return an array with a status, which is success. Then it has a message, and I'm being careful. I'm using JSON here that says category saved successfully. Now, what I didn't do is before saving, I didn't check if the category exists. So what I do first of all before I save, I simply say check if category is or rather exists, like that. So I'll simply say if, then I'll pick the current object and I'll execute this method over here. Now, if it returns true, it means that records exist because it only returns for us if it has rows or not. So if it has rows, then it means it exists. Otherwise, if it doesn't have rows, then we go ahead and save it uh, like that. So here I'll simply say return an array status will be exists. Then the message will be category exists. Semicolon. Did I leave out anything? Yeah, should be like that. Yeah. So that will be able to check it and save it for us. Then let's get categories. Don't worry. I'm going to show us how to test this out in a tool called Postman so that we see whether it works or not. So let's just complete it. Then we'll be able to see how we can be able to test it out. So the other thing will be to get categories. Again, function, get categories. I don't need any variables for that. So I'll simply say my SQL statement equals call. Call is going to be synonymous, as we had seen. That's how MySQL is able to invoke the stored procedures. Then get movie categories, it's here. I'll copy it like that. Then just paste it inside here. Now, because this one is we're just executing and returning data, I'll simply say return this current object get JSON. Then I'll pass the SQL statement. Remember, get data like this is when I want it to execute and give me back the results as a record set. If I want the results back as a JSON object, I simply say get JSON because that's what I actually did here. This will give me a result set. This one will give me back a JSON object. Okay, so that's the difference between the two because when I say get categories, I want to output them directly to the person who has actually requested for them. For the other one, are basically operations that I'm doing within the program itself, and maybe I don't want to spew them out to the user until I am done with whatever it is that I was doing. Then get category details. I'll come here again and say function get category details. But this one I'll need the category ID. For me to get details of a category, I need the category ID. So here I'll come again and say SQL is equals call. Then I'll come and say get movie category details is here. I'll pick that, copy it, paste it here, remove the data type, and enclose this one as a variable like that. Then again, also when I'm getting category details, I just return it as a JSON object, get JSON SQL. Then we have the last operation, which is delete. So for me to delete, again, I'll define another method function, delete movie category. Okay, so delete movie category, I'll simply say SQL is equals call. Then I come back and say delete movie. It will delete movie category is here. I'll copy this, that, and it requires a category ID. The user ID, sorry, category ID. So I'll remove that. User ID is coming from the system itself. So I'll say this dot user ID. Remember, I defined it here. I defined it as an object here and assigned a value here. Of course, when the user logs in, we're going to change this value. Actually, let me just make it public because I might want to modify it later on. So that is database property. So I'll use this dot use ID. Then of course enclose this as a variable. All of them are numbers, so I don't need the single quotation marks. Now here, because I'm not just returning the data directly, similar to saving, I'll simply say response is equals to this. Actually, I don't even need a response. I'll simply say this get data SQL like that. Then I will return an array, an associative array with status equals to success and then message of equal to uh, movie category deleted successfully like that. So as you can see, I have created my model. So I have a model called category. Then this category can check the movie category, it can save movie category, it can get movie categories, it can get a specific movie category, and it can also delete a category. It can do that, but it is a template. As it is, it doesn't do anything. It's just sitting there and waiting for you to tell it what to do. More like when you're baking a cake and you have that template for molding the cake. You see, you have to put ingredients and then you put it into an oven so that you bake a cake. But the template itself doesn't do anything, right? So this is exactly the template. It is waiting for you to now tell it, I want to create a new object based on the category. Then that object I want it to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's where now controllers come in. So this is the only place that connects to my database directly. Then the controllers will now connect the user interface and the model, and then the model now goes into the database and execute these portions of code. So let's implement the controller and see how you can use the controller to be able to invoke these functions. So I'll come to controllers here and I'll create a new file. I'll probably call it maybe movie category operations, movie category operations.php. Or I can call it category operations.php, but movie categories I think works fine. So here I'll also declare PHP like that. So here again, I'll require the movie categories because it's the one that has the template. Now, because movie category and categories are in different places, when I'm inside this file, I need to jump outside the controllers, then go into models. So I'll say require once. I'll jump outside controllers, then I'll go into models, then I'll get movie categories.php. I hope I've spelled it correctly. Movie categories.php. Yeah, so that requires that file. That's all I need. So the only thing another need is now to define a variable called category. Then I'll instantiate the category class like that. So now this is a template. This is an object. So an object can now be able to invoke all those functions. So what I'm going to do is I'll simply say if is set, maybe say post, save movie category. So when a user sends over save movie category, I'll need category ID will be a post variable of category ID. I'll also need category name. So all variables in PHP must start with $, that is post category name. Then I'll also need category description, or rather just description equals post description. Then is there anything else that I needed? No. So what I'll simply do, I'll simply say my response, because I'm expecting a JSON object, will be get the category that I've defined here, then execute this method called save movie category. It was category description. So this is category description. I'm just using the variable names here. So this variable names is what I'm assigning the values I have at the top. So response will be that. So here I'll simply say echo JSON encode, because this returns an associative array. I want to convert it into JSON so that my third-party app or whoever is going to consume this API will be able to 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 get that data as a JSON object. So that is if I try to save. What if I try to get? So I can simply say here if is set. Now you can either post or get. You can either post or get. Post basically means that the data is not sent as part of the URL, whereas if you use get, the data is sent as part of the URL. You're going to see that in a short while, or maybe when you're doing our front end, maybe in Postman you might not see that. But well, actually it's you're going to see that. So that's the difference between the two. When you are sending out sensitive information, we want to use post. We don't want to use get. But if you're sending data that is not as sensitive, or things like files to be uploaded and all that, then well, I can just use get. So usually for things that are sensitive, I use post. For things that are not that sensitive, then I use get. Okay. So let's carry on. Now, so we were trying to get um, the categories that do exist. So let's see. So if you set get movie categories, so get movie categories, I don't need any variables for that. Sorry, like that. I don't need categories for that. So I'll simply say echo category, because get JSON already converts it into a JSON object. I'll simply just get categories. This one. Get JSON already converts it into a JSON object, so I don't need to do anything further than that, as opposed to the first one, which was just returning an associative array. So if I want to get movie category details, if is set, sorry, if is set get movie category details. So if I need to get the category details, I'll have category ID to be provided. So that will be get category ID. Then of course I'll say echo category, which is the object I defined up here. Execute the following method, which is get movie category details, which is here. And that works out. Then of course we can also delete. So if somebody says delete, for delete I also use post. Anything that involves updating or modifying a database, I use post. So delete movie category, like that. I'll need category ID. Category ID, like that. So here I'll simply say response because I know this is going to return an associative array. I'll execute delete movie category, which is here. As you can see, it's returning an associative array below. That's why I'm saving the data in a response. Then I am echoing JSON encode the response. I'm doing that because I want it to be as scalable as possible. So I don't want to return the response on the other side as a JSON object because I might need it for other things or for internal functionality. Now, what I've done here is I have gone ahead and created a DB class which allows me to connect to the database. This is the only place that connects to the database. Then I've gone ahead and created a model which inherits the database class, and it's only the model that has the access to the database, of course, using the database class. But at the same time, it's more like a template telling me exactly what the category can do. It doesn't do anything, it just tells me this is what category can do, and that's one of the principles of object oriented. Then here inside the controllers, and I've misspelled this one, rename it's movie, not more movie. Yeah, I think that's okay. And here now, I am instantiating that particular object. So here, this one is a template. It doesn't do anything. It's just seated there, and it knows that it should do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It should do it. This one, on the other hand, I am creating a new object, and now I am going ahead and tell that object go and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm saying if the user says save the movie, then save the movie and give him the response. If the user says get the movie categories, then get the categories. If the user says delete get category details, get category details. If the user says delete movie category, then you delete the movie category. So that's the difference between this, and this is actually how object-oriented programming works in PHP. So we have created this is actually an API. This is what we call an endpoint. So the controller is basically our API endpoint, and now we can be able to execute this from any other programming language, whether you're going to use Node, you're going to use JavaScript, you're going to use Android, you're going to use Swift, you're going to use Visual Basic.net or Visual Studio. It doesn't matter which programming language you want to use for your application. You are going to consume this API. The data that is going to come back and forth is going to be JSON, and it's going to be very, very transparent as far as your application is concerned. And really, that is what we had intended to achieve with this. So let's test this out and see actually if it works. And if it doesn't work, we can be able to see what errors are there so that we can be able to fix them as we go along. All right. So what you need to do is you need a software called Postman. Postman like Postamn. So just download Postman. I already have it installed. So inside Postman, just go to the URL endpoint and provide the variables, and everything should be good to go. Let me just demonstrate how that works out. I'll give Postman a couple of minutes to be able to start. Okay, Postman is started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new HTTP here. Then, first of all, I want to save a new movie category. So I'll say here, instead of get, I'll change it to post. Then I'll give my URL is localhost. My folder is called moviesdb. I believe that's it. Then I'm going to go into controllers. Then I'm going to go into movie category operations.php. That's the endpoint, right? So this file over here. That's the endpoint. So you can see it is moviesdb controllers movies category operation.php. That's basically where I'm going. So the CSAMP docs is referenced with localhost. So that's why it is excellent. So that is the path. Now I need to be able to share the data. Now, how I'm sharing this data, I want to pass it as form data. So come to body here, then you say form data. Then you provide all your values and keys. So for example, I have the first value here is save movie category, which needs to be set to true. So set movie category, I'll save it to true. Then category ID is 0 if I want to add a new one. Then category name, let's say, which category didn't we add? Um, True story, yeah, like that. Then category description, let's say um, uh, real life stories of life events. All right. So I think that's basically all we need. So I have the endpoint, I have the body here, I'm passing it as form data, and I'm providing all the parameters that that API requires. So if I send this and everything is fine, I should be able to see success with the message. The movie category has been saved successfully. So let me run that, then we see. And as you can see, it's telling me this file has not been found. So this is movies.db. So localhost movies.db controllers movie category operations. Was it called movie category operation or movie categories operation? That's it.
The folder,
Yes.
the folder you have written moved SDB folder, your folder in the Postman.
My folder in Postman is different. Movies, yeah. It's There's a problem. It's movies DB. Yeah, thank you. So it's if it tells you it's not found, it means that the file is not found. So let's run it again. Now it's telling me require once movie category.php. So models movie categories is not there. So let me see again. So you expect this. So go outside in movie categories, jump outside, then go into models, then movie categories. Yeah, that looks legit. Or is it? So let me just cut that, put it inside models. It was actually outside. It was on the root. That's why it refused. So you need to be very careful where you place them. So it can see the description is not there, but you can see it tells me it has saved it successfully. Now let's just fix that. So it tells me line number 9 on category in movie category operations, line number 9. So I'll need to go back to that movie categories, line number 9. Line number 9 is where? No, it's this. It is category description, right? Category description. Okay. So that should now, if I try to run this again, of course, I'm expecting to tell me it exists, because I have already created it. So you can see it tells me it exists, which is perfect, right? So, and you can see I have some typos over there. So let me just fix that. Uh, Category. Perfect. So try to run it again. It tells me it exists, but let me put another category. Which other category of move do we have? We have animation, right? So I'll just say these are cartoons and animated pictures. Then I run it. It should tell me success and it has been saved successfully. Now, if I try to run it again, it tells me it exists. So you can see my API is actually working. And if I was to go to my database, I would actually see that it has created those two categories. If I come to categories and I open here, you'll be able to see I have true story. Of course, it had an error because the description is not provided, so it generated an error. But you can see cartoons and animation are actually here. So my API is now working. So let's go ahead and do something else. So I'll add another window. I'll just copy this path, add another window. Now I'm going to use get. I'll paste it. Then I'll tell it body, this is form data. Actually, it's not form data per se, but they're going to be parameters. When I'm using get, they are parameters. Okay. So I want to get movie categories. So I'll come here. and I'll say, how do you get categories? You call get movie categories like that. So I put it as part here. Now, that's what I said. In post, as you can see, the data is not passed as part of the URL, but in get, you can see the data becomes part of the URL. You can see get categories is actually added at the end of the URL here. Okay, so when I send it over, you can see it is giving me a list of all those movies that are there. I can beautify it, by the way. Um, it's not making it prettier than that, but it's okay. At least you can be able to read it. So I have an array of objects. So this is one object up to here. Then I have another object up to here. Then another object up to, where is it ending? Up to here. Then another object. So I have arrays of objects. This is actually a JSON object, and this is the data that usually pass back and forth between applications whenever we are executing our APIs. So let's get movies. Let's try another one. Still get, sorry, still get, but we want to get movie by a particular ID. So if we come to our database, we have a movie with ID 5. Okay, so I'll come here and say params, then category. First of all, is what I want to do, which is get movie category details, and category ID is 5. So that first of all is true. Then category ID is 5, and I execute that, and it tells me there's a problem. I've misspelled category ID. That's line number 19. So you need to test this again. That's what I was saying. Yeah, this one is category. I've misspelled that. Category, yeah, that's fine now. And you can see it now gives me the details of that movie category 5. So let's do a last one, which is delete. So delete is also post. Remember we said delete is post. So I'll get that. Then I'll come to body. Then I'll say form data. Then I'll put now the values that I expect, which is delete movie category. And I want to delete the fourth one. So that is true. Then category ID is 4. So I run it. If everything is fine, well, it tells me undefined index category ID. So again, I have to go back and check that. Category ID. So did I pass it as category ID or I misspelled it? No, I misspelled it here. So it's category ID. So it tells me there's an error near my SQL statement. So I'll just need to check that error. So what I'm going to do is I'll come to PHP here. Then I'll come to this because this is where the issue is. So it tells me there's an issue here. I'm wondering where the issue is. So let me do this. I'll simply say here echo SQL PHP end of line. So I want to see the SQL statement over there so that I see what error it gives me. So send this over. So it tells me, oh, the last parameter I have misspelled it. So you can see it's blank. So let me just go ahead and see what did I do. It is this dot user ID. That should be available. It's public. What is the issue with it? It looks fine. It looks fine. Why is it a problem? Why is it a problem? Why is it a problem? Because it worked fine. And it's exactly the same thing. So why is it giving me an error? Hmm. That's strange. It is public. Hmm. Yeah, category that use ID. Okay. Yeah, that's what I wanted to check. So public should make it accessible. User ID is okay. This is this strange. Why is it? Sorry, it's here. Hmm. So function, 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 function. Yeah. So that's strange. Let me check. Let me check. Let me check. Um. It's running blank. Why is that? Strange. That is really strange. Because the first one worked so well and it's more or less the same thing. What could be the issue? Hmm. Okay, I think I know what the issue is. Usually, whenever an object is created, use the construct function. So function, use the construct method. So whenever an object is being created, then assign this variable. So every time a new object is being created, then assign that variable. That should be able to take care of that problem. I think I've overlooked that, so that should be able to fix it. If I'm not wrong, where is it? It's I don't think I need this. I think that should be able to fix it because once when the first object was created, it assigned it, but now I'm since the object has already been created and I'm referring to it, it's giving me a problem. So let me see again. Still giving me the error. That's strange. Category. Hmm, strange. Why is that? That should have fixed it. Is it construct or yeah? I think it's actually construct. Let me look that up. PHP constructor method. Constructor method. I think it's double score undersign. If I'm not wrong, actually it is. Then why is it still giving me a problem? Yes, double score undersign. Yeah, it's construct. Yeah. Then why is it giving me a problem? Let me see. User ID. Oh, this is inside connect. It should be outside independent. It should be outside independent. Let me try that out. Let me remove this. Yeah, that should fix it. So yeah, what happens is that sometimes when you're talking about these variables that are global, you want them assigned when an object is being created. That's why you use the constructor method. We will not discuss constructors and destructors, but when you use a constructor method, it makes sure that every new object that is being created, that value is assigned, that value variable is assigned, that property rather is assigned to the variable that you have defined. So it makes it error free. I think that's the mistake that I had made, but I think that is now settled. So that is deleted. And if I was to get movie categories, now you'll see that the list is actually smaller. You will not have that ID number 3 as we go along. That is a mouthful, isn't it? Are you guys there?
Yes,
Yeah, so you can see that's actually quite a mouthful, but worry not, I'm going to make all this code available for you in a GitHub repo so that you can be able to follow it up and now see where we can be able to adjust a few things here and there. Okay? Is there any question up to this point? Or do I carry on or I let you practice? I share this code and I let you practice and see what you might not have understood. But what is very, very important is first of all for you to create a database class which you'll be able to extend to other classes. Okay. Then from there, you create your controller, which now is able to consume the contents of the class itself. And now you are able to test it using Postman. At this point in time, I can go ahead and comfortably create my user interface and now tie it up all together as far as my backend is concerned. Okay, regardless of whichever language I decide to use, whether I'm going to use Python, I'm going to use Android or Kotlin or Java or JavaScript or ASP.NET, it won't really matter what my front end will look like. So long as it is able to reach the server and it is able to consume JSON, then everything falls right into place. Okay. So what we will do is let me create a GitHub repo. So first of all, let me export the entire database, movies DB here, backup as dump. Then I'll call it database. Sorry, back. This is movies DB, and I'll call this database. So I'll export the database inside there. Then let me create a GitHub repo and share it with you guys so that now you're able to get access to that code. And this is what you will need to be doing every other time. So I'll create a new repo and I'll call it software development movie DB. I'll make this one public so that everybody can be able to access it. Sorry. I don't need a README file, so create repository. So I will initialize it. So I'll come here, open a terminal, new terminal, and I will paste that git in it, or you can just type git in it, not a big deal. Let me give it a minute or so to initialize properly. So git init or initialize git, it has initialized it, so you can see everything is untracked. So let's just copy this. Actually, let me say git commit initial commit. So git commit is before I even commit, I need to add all the files. I don't know if it's going to commit. It can't commit because I need to add git add all the files. Git, not git. What am I doing? So after I add all the files, git commit initial commit. Uh, minus message. I'm forgetting minus m for message. So it will commit it. Then of course, let me add the remote repository so that now you are able to use it. So let me just quit the branch main. That will be mine. You can quit yours, your working directory. Then I will add the remote origin. Then of course I'll push it so that you're able to access it. You guys know how to use Git, isn't it? So
Yes, yes.
all the source code is there. So what you're going to do is everything is there. The database is here. All the fields and all the data that I've created, all of it is already here. So just for purposes of following up what I have done, you can just download this one and import it into your MySQL database. It will be able to provide you with uh, all that all those scripts that I have written. These ones, all of them are going to be there, including the tables that I have created. But then, of course, you also have the source codes. You have the model; it's there. The controllers is also there with all the code that I have just written. So the only thing you need to do is let me share with you the path. So it's here. um, I'll share with class rep that particular portion. Then you can be able to follow it up and let me know if there is any issue. Right? Kuna swali mpaka hapo? Do we have any question up to that point? So you can see you have quite a lot of cut for you. So long as you are able to create the stored procedures, you're able to create your database connection, you're able to create your model, and you're able to create your controller, and you're able to test that your controller actually works, then you'll be good to go. Every other thing we're going to do from there is going to be basically repetitive task. Okay? Yeah, so I think, do I take a break from there or should I continue?
A break.
Okay, what I will do, let me share the GitHub repo with you. Then you can be able to clone it and see what you can be able to get. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. Just give me a shout out. I'll upload this video also on the YouTube channel, and I'll share it within maybe the next 10 minutes or so. I'm not going to edit it anyway. I'm just going to, you know, publish it as it is. Kama iko na makosa, it will have those mistakes as we move along. But I think overall we have been really okay. So no such shows over there. So I think I'll take a break at that. Then, in case you have a question, just post it on a comment there. Or I don't have access to your WhatsApp group. So most likely that's the only way you can be able to reach me out in case you have any questions and you need assistance. Okay. Surprisingly, I'm surprised that you are about 30 in class and only about 15 of you have subscribed to that channel of mine. So I don't know what the rest are doing. Well, you could still be able to watch as as a normal guest, but then that means that I cannot be able to track what you have looked at and what you have not looked at. But that is fine. What's important is that you are able to get the content, and in case of any questions, just quote your question over there, and probably maybe you can also quote your admission numbers that I can be able to tell exactly who this is who is asking the question. Okay. So I think without further ado, let me just leave it at that. I'll share the GitHub repo as part of the description in the YouTube video. Then you can be able to pick it up from there. Okay. All right. Thank you. And what happens tomorrow? Tomorrow you have space. We continue. I was told that you have completed most of the other assignments. Class rep.
I think I'll be able to communicate with